sit down. When they sit down, hold it. Welcome, everyone, to the regularly scheduled Wenham, Town of Wenham Board of Selectmen meeting. Today is February 25th. This is 6:30 p.m. Welcome, everyone. And that, as we usually do, at the beginning of our meetings, we invite the general public to come up to the podium, and if they want to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. Because on the agenda, you're going to have to wait. Anybody want to come up? As usual, we don't have anybody. That's okay. Nothing's changed, Paul, see?
Very few things have actually.
Okay, so next we have the announcements. I guess they're mine. Catherine, I'm going to give this back to you. I'm all done with it. Okay, we have a few announcements. The presidential primary, as everyone knows, will be held on Tuesday, March 3rd here at Town Hall from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can have, I don't need this anymore now. Early voting is currently available. It will continue during regular Town Hall hours through Friday, February 28th. Absentee voting is available through Monday, March 2nd in the Town Clerk's office. Please contact the Town Clerk with questions at 978-468-5520, extension 1. Next, we have a resident satisfaction survey through March 6th. Our resident satisfactors by Great Blue Research, Inc. By the way, some controversy, how did they get our telephone numbers? Did we provide them to them?
We did not provide telephone numbers. It's the same way that every other company that spams us gets the numbers. How, I don't know.
They have cell phone numbers. They had to call some people's cell phone.
They called my home phone. I thought it was, I forgot the fact that it was, well, I'm not answering that
We
one.
didn't provide any numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
had
what
to
it's
tell the
worth,
person
they
that.
actually caught me sitting still, and I answered the phone. And I said, I know who you are.
Gosh, they didn't call
How do you
me.
know who I am?
I said, I know
said,
Great
well, I'm on the
Blue.
board.
Where did I hear that name?
Yeah.
Did you
Anyway,
do that
it's
one?
available via a link.
I walked it through. It was quite well done.
It's available via a link on our homepage of the town website through Friday, March 6th. The Citizen Engagement Project was funded by a grant from the Division of Local Services, allowing us to gather information and opinions from residents to better understand satisfaction with services offered and information on the demand for additional opportunities within the community. Next and last announcement is members of our Finance Advisory Committee will be offering resident budget forums, offering the opportunity to learn more about the proposed budgets and what your vote means in April during the month of March. 2 sessions will be hosted by the Wenham Council on Aging, Wenham Connects, /Wenham Connects, our age-friendly task force, and the Friends of Wenham Council on Aging on Saturday, March 7th and Wednesday, March 18th at 10 a.m. at the Council on Aging building on 10 School Street. I think it'll be interesting to go to that. I'm going to plan to be there for one of those two, March 18th, I guess. Visit the Fiscal 2001 budget process page on the town website for links to all budget presentations and videos of meetings throughout the budget process. If additional budget forums are scheduled, those dates will be advertised on the town website and social media pages, which I didn't announce, but we have every single year, is the warrant hearing, which is the Monday before the Saturday town meeting, which is what date?
30th?
I think it's March 30th.
Yeah.
30th.
So that's an important meeting where you can get to ask the Finance Committee, presumably the Board of Selectmen, and also the School Committee of questions you have on their budget. I guess we'll continue on this one. Presidential primary election day is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, here at Town Hall. Early voting Monday through Friday, February 24th through 28th, during Town Hall hours, which are the usual. Monday, 9 a.m. to 4:30. Tuesday, actually, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 4:30. Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4:30. And Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Absentee voting is available now through noon on Monday, 3/2/2020. Contact the town clerk for details. Okay, what am I supposed to talk about this?
No, I think you already did.
Okay, good. Resident budget forums, we did that. Warrant hearing, town meeting. Oh, I gotta go back to that. I just mentioned the warrant hearings, March 30th, 7 p.m. at the Bucca Elementary School. I didn't mention where it was, 1 School Street, in case anybody knows or doesn't know. Everyone knows that if you live in Wenham. Our annual town meeting is Saturday, April 4th, 2020 at 1 p.m. Resident check-in is at noon. Seats of cushions are available to rent at $89 each. No, it was a mistake.
But a good cause, a very good
I don't
cause.
know what the cost of the pillow on your seat is going to be, but anyway.
That's a donation. It's a free will donation.
A donation. I suppose if you think it's only worth $1, you give $1, 10, I don't know, whatever. What do people usually give, Harry? Do you know? You don't know? Okay.
But it's going to the Wish Fund.
Yeah.
So be generous, right?
Absolutely. Town luncheon sponsored by, as usual, the Wenham Village Improvement Society. 12:45 Kids Town Meeting at the Recreation Center provided by the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Regional Honor Society. Okay. And lastly, and very importantly, the annual town election is Thursday, was the Irish say Thursday, April 9th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Candidates Night by the Hamilton Wenham League of Women Voters is Tuesday, March 31st, 2020 at 7 p.m. I was privileged to show up last year and give my thoughts on that. Gary Cheeseman will have to do it this year and other people as well. How many people are up for a school committee this year? Anybody know?
3, I think.
3?
Oh, 2?
We have
2 openings, right?
2 openings.
2 openings, okay.
2 seats are available. Okay. Is one of them an incumbent?
He's an appointed incumbent, if you want to consider him. He's appointed.
Okay. Oh, I guess so. I don't know. Okay. Now we go to you. I don't have any particular comments to make as a chairman. I did have one, but no, I'll pass on. That's enough. Go ahead.
I'll email my report out for the sake of moving the meeting along. I didn't include it today, so I'll get that up there
Oh, okay.
a bit later and up on the website.
Keep us in the dark.
Suspense,
Yeah, okay.
thrilling.
Thank you.
John, you have the consent agenda.
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay.
Well, just move to that.
There's only one item on it today, and the Hamilton Wenham Friends of the Arts has requested the use of the Wenham roads, and so I will read the motion for one of their road races. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve all items in the consent agenda, including the Hamilton Wenham Friends of the Arts request to use Wenham streets for the 25th Annual Melody Miles Road Race, which is going to take place on Saturday, May 23rd, 2020.
I'll second that.
Any questions, concern? This has been going on for just a few years now, so.
Yeah, 25 years. God, I
And
can't
they're always
believe I
good,
was
good stewards.
involved in the first one. I'm really
Made
getting
their
old.
requests, the police have okayed it and so forth.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jack. That's it.
Well, before we move from the consent agenda,
Oh,
not
yes,
on this item, but
Oh.
I think Nikki has 4 or 5 sets of minutes that she could include and could, if we maybe just didn't quite make this, but there are minutes that are able to be
Ready to
on.
go?
Yeah,
Okay, so
that she has.
We'll have them in there for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I also want to tell her which ones we want to, which we had previous executive sessions for, they're no longer necessary. There's 2 big ones. Wenham Pines, I think, is one. And I'll have to go back and look at the other one. It's not
Yeah.
Maple, which is still outstanding, and that, I forget the other one, but I have to go back and read that. But at least that one, and that, the fire department, fire chief, so forth, that's
Right.
done. So we have the certificate of insurance here, and I failed to mention, well, we talked about it privately before this meeting, that Stuart Corning passed away recently. We were trying to figure out his age, and it was well into the 90s. Did anybody know his actual age, by the way?
Heard at the church 94, but
That's what I
That
was
sounds
guessing.
right.
So
Sounds about
when I
right.
first came on the Finance Committee, Paul probably knows this much better than I do. He was recruited by, I think, Wynn Dodge to basically help organize the town's personnel files, payroll system in terms of grades and so forth. And he spent hours and hours and hours here at Town Hall helping the town administrators. They came and they went. And that also the Finance Committee, and that he'll be missed. And thankfully, we had quite a celebration for him a few months ago here, and he sat in that chair right there. And that, and I think he appreciated, his family appreciated, and there was, I'm glad we were encouraged by his son to have it earlier than we otherwise might have had it, because he was alive and was able to appreciate, yeah, it was a good thing. So I believe a memorial service will be held, but the date wasn't announced. That if it was announced, I don't have the date, but he served the town extremely well, and God rest his soul in peace. All righty. New business. One, the override structure. Who's got that one?
You do.
I do. Oh, good. Look at me.
Jack.
I move that we, no. Okay, last meeting we had, and that I know we have at least one person from schools, is just one, I guess. Okay.
Lucky Stacy?
I thought Michelle Bailey was going to be here.
Well,
I thought, I was told that she was going to be here and make a presentation.
She may, well, Stacy, are you here to represent the school committee?
I think Michelle Bailey was supposed to be here.
Okay,
Yeah.
she's probably hobbling over from wherever she
Okay,
Oh,
so let me,
that's
was.
for those who are
Something at the
not sure what we're talking about here, let me give a background here. We're in an override situation of the town and the schools. At our last meeting, we divided up $1,085,000 override, which is the largest I think we've ever had, into two buckets. One bucket would be
Here she is.
$1,085,000, here we go, hobbling in, $363,000, $1,085,363. And that, we've already taken the vote, Michelle, but
No, we haven't.
just kidding.
Waiting outside because the door was closed. I thought you were still in executive
Oh,
session.
no, sorry.
So basically, with the help of the Finance Committee and Advisory Committee, we determined of the $1,085,363 override necessary on the town, that $361,640 will be attributable to the town, and the Hamilton Wyndham Regional School District would have attributable to them $723,720. So $361 and $723. So we had a debate the last meeting, and there were pros and cons of having one article combined, where we have a, I'll call it a parenthetical expression, which attributes those two amounts I just mentioned, one to the schools and one to the town, but it would all be in one override article. Or the alternative would be to have two override articles, one for the Hamilton Wyndham Regional School District, which is normal, and one for the town, which is not normal. We haven't needed one, and that, and two separate ones. And so that, I'm going to just give a personal opinion. The advantage of having two, my opinion, is that it gives the voters in town a choice. If you like the school override, and they have for the last 25 years or 30 years that I've been in town, I don't recall a school override ever failing at all, no matter how much money it was. And we haven't had a history on the town overrides. But so if you think the schools are worthy of an override, you can vote yes, if we separate the two. And if you don't think the town is really satisfactorily describe why the town needs an override, then you can vote no, or vice versa. But it gives the town
a choice.
a choice. So that's the advantage of that. And I think that we had discussion. We did not take a vote. Catherine informed me that the school, regional school district was going to meet last night, and I tried to watch it on Channel 8, but Hamilton Selectmen were on and kicked you off, but Catherine tells me they were on YouTube earlier. Anyway, I didn't get a chance to see it. So I'm told via email that Michelle is going to come up, or hobble up, I should say, and that, give us the sense of the regional school district meeting last night. And I'm told that their preference is to have one override for the town and the schools combined, which I already told the number was $1,085,000 and change. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yep. So thank you for delaying your decision and to give us the opportunity to meet. We knew that this was coming, and we had hoped that we would have an opportunity to meet together this week, but time just doesn't allow it. But we did meet last night. We would really encourage you to put these all in one ballot vote. We're sorry that the superintendent couldn't give you our consensus because we hadn't discussed that the last time, but that is the consensus, a unanimous consensus, actually. And we have like a few reasons for that. We have no issue with how you divide that up. We feel that you've been very deliberative in trying to come up with something that's equitable, and whatever the way you've decided to divide it up seems to be equitable. But we feel that there has been strong support at our meetings for the school override. We feel that we also have a strong position to explain why the budget has gone up quite a bit, and that we are really trying to address some of the issues of the past few years by hiring a few new employees that are going to work with our language-based disability children, are going to be able to assist our children with autism, and those are the disabilities that are really going out a lot because we have two very good schools that meet those children's needs within 5 miles of the town. So that's why the budget is going up, mostly because we're trying to do that. We, in the schools, realize that the town provides us with a lot of services. You pick up our recycling, you plow the roads that our buses drive on, you take care of the sidewalks that our children walk on, you provide the water that comes into the building, you take care of the fields, and help with the maintenance of the, outsides of the schools. So if the overrides were to be split and the schools was to pass and the towns was not, the town is going to have to make cuts that we feel will affect the school community as well. So we would like for our people who are going to support the schools in the override vote to also support the town in the override vote. A way to guarantee that is to put it into one override. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's in one or two, if they both pass or if they both fail. But what we really don't feel is good is for one of them to pass and one of them to fail, because it puts the town in a bad position and the schools in the bad position. And whoever's the winner and whoever's the loser is going to have to make some tough choices. I understand the concept of choice for the voters, but the choice is yes or no if we put them all together. The other thing I'm a little bit concerned about is this is going to be a very complicated ballot, especially if you did not go to town meeting, because you're going to see an override for the schools. You're going to see a debt exclusion for the schools. You're going to see a debt exclusion for the town. And now I'm hearing possibly another override vote for leaves. So that's a lot of things to vote on, particularly if you did not go to town meeting. And we know that more people vote in the election than actually attend the meeting. So for simplicity of the voter, understanding what they're voting on, we feel that having one operational override, two debt exclusions is kind of a better way. And I can answer any questions you have about
I just want to point out, you did mention it, but so if the town's override, let's say a combined override fails, the town is done. That's it. We have to make the cuts for $361,000 I just mentioned. If it fails because of the regional school agreement, the regional school district can go back and ask again a second time. They can either change the number or the same number. And if that fails, we have what we did 20 years ago. We all meet in the summertime in the Hamilton High School gymnasium.
Yeah.
Hopefully the air conditioning works this time.
There still is none. There still is none.
That was set off on purpose, maybe so that the two towns get to vote on the regional school district budget, whether it fails in both towns or one town. So the regional school district has other options if that either combined vote or the single vote, if we separate the two, fails. If the single vote fails and does not pass in our town in the ballot as well, the town is done. We have to make cuts totaling the $361,000 so to pass the override. Again, the schools don't have to do that. They can choose to make cuts or not. But in the past, when that has happened, which has not been very often, they can go back and meet again and come up with a subsequent different or same budget. So that's a very important consideration. So that there's a lot more at stake for the town if it fails, and that I'm not sure. I don't think that the three members of the board here, any people I talk with, are handicapping it one way or the other. And there's, you can hear people say, School overrides never fail, so why shouldn't the town piggyback on the schools? That sounds like a good idea. On the other hand, people say, let's have a choice, and this is a large override for the schools, larger than is normal. So there are pros and cons of both, and that. But I have some questions in the school budget.
Yeah, and can I just ask one question about that? Have you actually verified that with Lauren Goldberg, that you cannot come back? Because when I was reading the DOR, it said...
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Anthony and I had a meeting. We're done.
Okay. All right, because it said that you had until September 15th to get an approval, because that's when the date you would have to go in to get, the starting of the setting of the tax rate, and that you would actually have until that date to get an authorization.
We can't go back again. If it fails at town meeting or the ballot, we're done. We have to make the cuts.
Okay.
I think we need to verify that, Jack. I
Well,
think
Lauren
if it-
Goldberg sat right across from Anthony and I about a week ago and told us that. She's our outside
If
counsel,
it
by the way.
fails at one and passes at another,
I'm sorry.
and I've now will be confused at which is which, but according to the DOR, if the town override passes, Paul's going to laugh at me, if it passes in
He's holding
one
it back.
and fails in the other, there is one instance where if we get a dual vote, that we would be required to go back to a town meeting to re-vote a levy limit budget.
That's how it was 20 years ago, I can't.
No, we're talking about the town instead of the school.
Yeah, and that's,
No, what I'm saying, the school budget is voted on both towns. If either doesn't approve it, goes back to you, comes back, I forget if there's a second two-town meeting. If that still fails, either or, then you do the
Right.
combined one.
Right,
And if it fails there, then there's a state takeover.
right.
Yeah.
but that is
But
also.
what if the town has an override and it passes at the town meeting, but it fails at the ballot? Do they have then an opportunity to have another ballot?
The money has to be appropriated
Right.
for everything.
Right.
Otherwise, as Jack says, it'll have to be cut. In the case of the schools, if the school committee were not comfortable with making cuts, they can basically ultimately, and you can't convince the voters to vote for your budget.
Right.
And you can appeal it to the Department of Education,
Right.
at least that's how it used to be.
Legally, it's a completely separate entity.
Right.
That's where my concern would be, not only the choice factor for the voters, but the fact that legally we're separate entities. And if there's a problem with the school, they have a different
Yeah, they have
avenue
to
in which
proceed
to-
separately. They have a
Correct.
Tenant mandate, and the only person who can override their decision of what the budget
Is
is
the
to
Department
be
of Education.
is the state.
That's
I
right.
mean, but they have to get town approval. If they don't, we go through these process, and if ultimately they can't get the approval, they still think it's essential to the education of the children, then in effect, the state steps in and decrees a budget and
Yeah.
figures out how it's going to be paid for.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's
So-
a level budget.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that, I guess, that wasn't where my question was. I'm looking at a piece of paper from the DOR, and I wasn't going to bring this up now, except it is up, that says that for a town budget, if a question passes, an appropriation fails, or if the question passes, and in either case, if the question passes and the appropriation fails, the remedy for that is a town meeting.
Special.
A special town meeting, which if you have the big override together and the big override fails, we're going to be having a special town meeting, because I can guarantee you that the school district is not going to be able, your portion is just $723,000 in the override. For every $1 in Wenham, it's $2 in Hamilton. So when you roll that up, there's no way we would be
I don't think
able
there's going to
to.
be an override in Hamilton.
No, but if
There's no override in Hamilton, so.
No, but if Wenham votes down the budget in the override, in order to make cuts sufficient to meet
Yeah.
your it's $2 out of Hamilton's budget and $1 out of Wenham's, just because of the way the split is. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah. So I can't say that the school committee for certain wouldn't just take what the town says, but I think it's highly unlikely. So I think it's
unlikely.
very likely that if the school override fails, it will come back with something.
Yes.
Yeah. So there will be a special town meeting for that purpose. So the voters of Wenham could still vote
Hamilton.
for a new school budget and a new town budget at that time.
No. They can't vote, we're told
Okay.
we're
I
done.
think- I'd like to see that in writing, please. Can we get that from Lauren in writing? Because I had a similar conversation with Lauren a couple of years ago, which I really didn't completely understand, and now I'm seeing it again in a DOR memorandum. So,
Well, it was, and she had two other lawyers with her, they all agreed, so I don't know if we,
Well, I
it
just
wasn't 2 out of 3, it
you
was
know
all
how
3.
you
and
always
that,
ask for things in writing from legal counsel, so it's my turn.
It's always good to get it from your lawyer in writing.
Anthony and I were there, we heard it, and am I characterizing it correctly here?
Yeah, I think that there could be an opportunity for a special in the event of what Catherine's saying. I think that's what,
Well, it fails, and you can always go back and ask again. You can ask multiple
Yeah, you
times.
can ask
No, but
multiple
you'd have to go back, unlike the schools where it's mandated, that, not mandated, you have the ability to do that.
right.
So I have another concern, so
Yeah,
that,
so-
I have 2 or 3
So I
concerns.
don't have the full budget in front of me. I do have our talking points, and I can tell you what I know.
This is theoretical.
Okay.
So let's say next year, well, I'm going to go back to, I'll call it Dr. K, and that she made a great presentation at that podium 2 or 3 weeks ago. And she was giving us a projection for next year, which sounded pretty good. I think it was
Yep.
like 4.2%, something like that.
Yep.
And I said, well, that's a hell of a lot better than this year and other years.
Right.
But then I got a copy of the Chronicle last Thursday. And they had a lot, you read that, right?
Of course I did. You and I are the only subscribers left in town that get a paper copy.
Well, in it, there's a lot of quotes from school committee members saying that they had
Those are from our meetings, yep. We were not interviewed, but he took those from the meeting.
there were a lot of proposed expenditures which were not approved and
Correct.
delayed until next year, which I don't think were in Dr.
Correct.
K's, I'll call it Dr. K's budget. So I'm apprehensive of the fact that her 4.21%, if I'm remembering correctly, is going to actually materialize, given what I read in the Chronicle about some of the delayed expenditures. And so I think it's highly aspirational that we're going to see a budget next to 4.21%, which leads me to my concern. My concern was, let's say that we make, one way or the other, we have to make cuts in the town, whether the override passes or not. And next year, fortunately, we're only looking for an override from the town, that is, of $100,000 to $150,000, $100,000. I'm going to pick a number. Less
You mean
than
for
this-
next year through a structural deficit? Okay.
Right. And unfortunately, because of the delayed or postponed expenditure increases for the schools, you're looking for $1 million in the town of Wenham. So we have $1 million and 100,000. This is hypothetical. I'm not that good at projecting since I'm not on the school committee. So here we are. If we vote this year to basically have one budget for the two, we're locked in forever in that. We're not going to be able to go back next year. Well, let's have two. Even though you want the school would want $1 million hypothetically, and we want 100,000. From now on, it would be very difficult to explain why we would want to go back to 2 separate overrides as opposed to one. So, once we make this decision, this will be something that's a set a precedent for future years, and so that I'm just because it'd be hard pressed to explain why we all of a sudden wanted. And I'm concerned about that, particularly after reading the, I think it's called a Chronicle and transcript now on that.
Yeah.
And the next one was a little tougher on this. This is a question. So
So was there a question in that, or was that just,
no, I'm just
Okay.
expressing an opinion. I'm
Yep.
concerned about that.
okay.
So a constituent approached me this Sunday, at church actually, who has a child in special needs. It's a daughter, and she has cerebral palsy. And he was surprised to learn, so was I, that we're accepting school choice children who have special needs. So most people don't know, we only get $5,000
Right.
for school choice, and that's been the same for the last 25 years or something like that, a long, long
Yeah,
time.
at least.
Well, since whenever.
Since 93.
Whenever it was that we got rid of Essex, because that's when school choice started. So that, and I was already living here, so it's been less than 25 years. But yes, that is true.
It hasn't gone up.
Yes.
And, obviously, even if it's not a special needs child, $5,000 doesn't pay for the average cost.
Correct.
Special needs children cost a lot more than $5,000, a lot more than the average cost. So so what we're doing, he asked me this question, I didn't know the answer. In effect, we're subsidizing other local towns who are sending, local towns presumably, other towns anywhere in Massachusetts, they're sending the special needs children here, presumably because we have an outstanding program, but the Hamilton taxpayers, the Wenham taxpayers and the Hamilton taxpayers are subsidizing that. And so what was the rationale for that?
So when you choose to accept school choice students, it has to be on a lottery. So it's blind. You can't say we're only accepting students that don't have an IEP, so it's blind. So that's part of it.
So you don't know their special needs before you accept them?
Correct.
Oh.
We also there is a differential for them. So if a student is, if a non-special ed student is $5,000, a special ed student, depending upon their need, gets a differential. So the town might be paying $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 for them. I'm not exactly sure how that number gets worked out. I know it's not 100%. However, if you have a child on an IEP and you're in choice, right now you're pretty much at the high school. A lot of services at the high school are limited because kids have to really be in the academics. But also, most of those are either seeing a counselor or you're having a special block where you're with 6 or 7 other children and a teacher. So if you're in with 6 children and you add the 7th children, you haven't added necessarily a teacher, you have added some administrative paperwork loading, and sometime during the lifetime of the child at the high school there will be some educational assessments done, but that's,
But our special needs population has increased dramatically in the last 2 or 3 years.
Correct, but
According
it's
to
not
that.
necessarily because
I'm not
of
saying
that,
it's
yeah.
student choice, but we've gone from like 50 to 70, something like that. That's a lot.
Yeah, we're having,
Why is
I
that?
didn't print that off, but we do have about 100
wanted to
100
clarify what she
to
said.
150, I can't remember the number, I hate to give the numbers, but it was about 100 or a little more than 100 students tested each year, meaning a parent or the school has decided that they need to be assessed to see if they have a learning disability, and about half of those turn out to actually have a disability. But when you have 100 students being tested and you're finding half of them eligible, that's part of the increase. And, we have a very sophisticated clientele here in town. Many people are doctors and lawyers and educators, and they know their rights and they're exercising their rights. And
So can
we
I
also
just-
know that people are having children older, and children who might not have lived are surviving, and children, there's theories that people who are older have children, that the children have difficulties, and there's a whole host of reasons why that could be.
So I just wanted to clarify, I understand I'm interrupting. I think what I heard you say was that a choice student who has no IEP we are reimbursed, the town is reimbursed $5,000.
Correct.
If the child has an IEP, there is an incremental payment,
Correct.
reimbursement to the town, which is somewhat, maybe, commensurate to the amount of services they get.
Right.
And if the child is a choice student and is an out-of-district placement, the out-of-district costs come from the sending district. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, that
Okay.
if,
I didn't-
and the only thing we would be then doing for that child is administering their IEP, meaning you would, every 3 years, you would have to reevaluate, and you'd have to annually evaluate, like, the placement and stuff like that. But my understanding, what I have been told, is that if it's the child is placed out of district, we don't pay that. I've also been told we don't have any of those students.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I
but,
didn't understand.
a lot of this budget increase does have to do with trying to address what has been really driving the budget, which is out-of-district placements. And the things that are adds in here are to have a language-based disability teacher added. That will help so that we have a defensible position against whether or not a child has to go to Landmark. And we also are adding what's called a BCBA, which is like a behavior change type person. That's their specialty. And they deal a lot with children with autism, or sometimes children who have difficulty regulating their behavior. And there are schools nearby that also take children with those issues. So if we can keep the children in our district, besides it being better for the child, because now they're with their peers, their friends from town, the families from town, it's also better for the district because it's less expensive. And we can control that cost. When they go out of district, we have to pay what they send us the bill for. When they're in district, we can control the cost much better.
Do you have questions for?
No.
John, you have questions, sir?
I'd like to make a comment. First of all, thank you very much for trying your best to explain to us.
Yep.
Dr. Kay, as Jack referred to her,
Yep.
did a fabulous job last week.
She did.
Communicating to us, and I know a lot more after her conversation here than I did before.
Right.
And I think you've got a great advocate for the school system. My concern is that not only are we dealing with two completely separate legal entities, but the school issues are just so much more complex to deal with, as you're describing, as she described. Man, I just don't want to even get close to that. You guys, well, she's the professional on it, and
Right.
you guys are the ones that are monitoring that, and God bless you for what you do. I really mean that with all sincerity.
Yep.
So you're announcing you're not going to run for school committee next year, is that right, John?
Well,
I'm going to let the folks that have
there are two openings most years, so.
I'll think about it later.
Yeah, no, but there are two, but, you know, in the same way that some of our issues are, you know, unfunded mandates, the same is true with the town. I mean, last year, the state came in with something about the wash basins or the catch basins. And
Drains.
yeah, and, you know, I mean, it's well-intentioned, but it didn't have any money. So who has to pay for it? We have to pay for it. It's the same with the schools. There are, you know, unfunded mandates. There's a new one, except for they gave us a little bit of funding, but now we have to put together a plan to show how we spend that money, which is that new money that's come from the Student Opportunity Act. We are going to write our plan, but we are using that money instead of using it to do anything new. We're going to use the programs that we have, and we're going to use that money to reduce the budget. That's how we got down to this 8.57%. You know, so we're trying really hard to meet the legal obligations
Yep.
within cost. Now, one of the reasons that our budget went up a lot this year is that our teacher contract added a lane. So that means that teachers who were at plus, it was added at 15 or at 45? I think it's at,
It added.
I don't know, there's,
Sorry, Michelle.
so
Yeah,
there was a lane added in the contract.
What is a lane?
So if you are
Different
an
level,
educator and you have just a bachelor's degree,
Another category.
you get one lane. If you're an educator and you have 30 hours or a master's degree, you get another lane, and so forth. So we added one lane, and I don't remember if it was between bachelor's and master's or if it was between master's and, so
plus 15.
when, okay, so master's plus 15. So those teachers who are are pursuing higher education and staying on top of things. So we had a large number of teachers jump lanes. So that won't happen again because you had a lot of teachers who were already at like master's plus 12, and they were like, we'll just take one more class and I can jump a lane because it's a lot closer than trying to jump all the way up to 30. So that's also in the budget driver, so that's not something that's going to happen next year. Things that we've deferred this year, we just have to try and figure out more creative ways of dealing with them. And also, like one thing we've deferred is replacing our iPad cart. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just that iPads have a useful life and you would like to replace them before they are all starting to fall apart. But if we can find ways that we can fund those through grants, maybe from the Ed Fund or something like that, we could pursue that. We just need to pick more carefully and deliberatively. And we put out the list so people know these are things we're working on, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're the things we're working on for next year. They might be the things we're working on for 2 years from now or 3 years from now.
Well, that's encouraging. Any more questions of Michelle before I turn it over to an unannounced visit? Jim, the only member of the FinCom here. I know the FinCom met the other night. I know Alex is not here, but would you mind coming to the podium and give us the wisdom of the FinCom on this article, even though the FinCom didn't vote on it officially, if you won't mind? You never know what's going to happen when you show up, Jim, with these meetings.
So,
Jim Purdy. The FinCom had a very informal discussion regarding one article, two articles. At the time we had that discussion, we did not have the formula that you created on Friday afternoon. So we didn't know what the split was. So as an informal discussion, tomorrow night, the FinCom meets formally, and on the agenda is a discussion and possible vote as to one article, two articles. So that's kind of where we stand at this point.
Okay, thank you. There's two more school committee members there. Either one of you want to get up and say anything? I guess not. Oh?
Oh, I do.
Oh, semi-reluctant to, okay.
My whole life on the school committee, just a little reluctant. I just want to thank you.
That was pretty funny, Michelle.
Yeah. Just thank you for being open to the school committee. I know our history has not been smooth, but I really want to believe that we've turned a new leaf. We're very transparent, and we know that we have to work together. And I just feel like we have to keep the past in the past and move forward and know that we all are working for the same purpose and for citizens, whether they be 65 or 55 or 15. So we're all in this together. So just thank you so much for being open and working together.
Ultimately, we are in the same boat.
We're in the same boat.
Oh, yeah, we are.
But we come
With a
come at it
big
from
row,
different-
two big oars, whatever, so.
Not as big as I
but
wish they were.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, that's it, we got the, so, before we have a vote, you want to say anything?
I have really nothing new to add, to my opinion, from the other day. I guess I happen to agree with the Michelles and the school committee.
Two Michelles.
Two Michelles,
Okay.
it's like two Catherines. I think those reasonings are valid. I think the notion of saying to the towns that finally we're acting together, although we may or may not agree with the actual number, and as selectmen or as anyone else, we have the ability to say that on town meeting floor.
Say it again?
So, we're saying if we put them together, we may lose our opportunity to opine on the schools or the towns, and I don't think that's true. The two that are together would identify a number for the towns and a number for the schools. And I would imagine during that article, before anyone voted on it, if it were in one article, the schools would get up and talk to their 700,000, and we would get up and speak to our 361,000. I think the notion of,
Well, let's say we voted in favor of one article tonight, either unanimously 0-1. We would have to get up there and support the override. We can't say, that's the whole point of having one override. We can't say, well, we support the town but not the schools. If we support one override, we're supporting it all the way. We can't pick and choose at the town floor what we're gonna support or not.
well, I think supporting having the schools and the towns being voted on together procedurally is different, is not necessarily the same as agreeing with each budget. Because actually, yeah, because we're not opining on the budgets here, we're opining on override.
Right.
We could still have an opinion on the school budget at, $30 million.
Yeah?
And,
Ultimately, it does affect the budget.
well, yes,
So the override is the budget, or is included in the budget if you support the override.
again, I don't have a problem, personally, with saying that I support the procedural path of one override for towns and school together, with the caveat that I would like to see the schools continue to work to bring their, share or their dollar number down to something that is more sustainable. I don't have, that's not an issue I have. And I think somewhat compelling is the notion of someone walking into the ballot box and seeing 5 or 6 override questions, and, which one comes first?
We have a very intelligent electorate, so
Anyway,
I'm confident they can
that's-
figure out loose leaf collection, schools, and that
Well, I'm not so sure about the loose leaf part.
fire
but
truck, I think we can explain the fire truck and
I
so
think
forth.
that's true for folks that go to town meeting. I think it's less true for people who just go to the ballot, especially if they, are more familiar with one thing than another. I understand you guys don't agree with that, that's fine with me. You know, we each have our say. I thought about this, and I've gone back and forth, and I've talked to some people, and I understand, I think, the pros and cons, and there are pros and cons of each approach. I personally am in favor with the one article, that's all.
I'm going to ask you a question in a bit, but I have one more question.
I have a question too, if you don't mind.
But I said it first, so.
You did.
Okay.
You're the chairman.
I raised my hand first. So this is the request. I had a conversation with a gentleman who lives in town and wanted to know from me why the town has to go through line by line on the budgets and the schools don't. And in the past, I think the school superintendent would get up and give a PowerPoint presentation, might last 20 minutes, and might be questions, might not be questions, but there was no line by line. So this person, who's well-known, but I won't mention his name, it's a he, I said, I don't know, but I'll ask. And that, so I don't know if anyone has the authority to answer that, but what do you think about that? I hate to make you get up again because...
No, that's fine. It's physical therapy. That's what I'm supposed to do. So the reason is obviously because it's the law that we just put forward one budget, but when we put together our budget, it's approved in the DESE's categories, and I can't remember if there's 9 or 10 of them. But you know, even being on the school committee, eventually, like, I've come to realize, like, those are really unclear as to what's in what. You know, you can kind of figure out where wages are, but, you know, if you're in a certain, you know, job series, you're in a different corner of the budget, and if you ride a certain bus, you're in one pocket, and if you ride another bus, you're in another kind of pocket. So, the reason is because it's the law that we just present the budget, but the line item things that you're talking about are available for people to see.
This is his question to me, which I'm asking you. Maybe it doesn't have to be line by line, but more detailed than what you normally get, which is basically a PowerPoint presentation by the superintendent.
Yeah.
And there you go, and asking any questions.
Right. So that's only traditionally been available online because it's almost as thick as the warrant book. So printing a lot of those for, you know, the 10 people that are going to read it, we haven't done, but we do provide it online, and we do have it available in the superintendent's office, and I'm pretty sure it's been available at the, you know, upstairs at the library where they have the tax forms and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure it's been available there as well. But if that person wants to email us, we're happy to send them a link.
Listening tonight, I know.
Okay. Okay.
So you're saying that as a regional school district, statute says you present your entire Wenham share of the budget to Wenham, and we vote it up or down.
Yeah, and the line items, like even your budget when you present it, it's not all the lines. You know, you've rolled up several lines into by department. So, you know, I mean,
It's a lot of lines, but it's by department.
yeah, but when we do it by department, it's called the DESE categories. And so, and I can't remember if it's 9 or 10. So we divide it up that way because that's the way the regional agreement says we're supposed to do it. So
Interesting question, but I
Yeah.
can see why.
Just one person,
Yeah,
I might
we have-
pass it along by saying more detail would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Paul wants to say
Just to
something.
say it, I believe that the way we do it is tradition and not required.
Right.
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
it has to be approved in accordance with parliamentary process and so forth, but I don't think, when I first got to run the meetings, that's how it was done. It had been done that way probably during Joe Harrington's entire life. It's been that way forever.
Since 1872, I looked it up, Paul.
Yeah.
So, but I think that frankly, there's probably other ways you could do it and still be valid
Yeah.
appropriation.
This is,
It isn't that they're not following our practice, it's
No.
a practice that that's optional for us.
Yeah.
this person's point was, there's more detail in the presentation of the town's budget by the townsfolk than there is in detail by the schools, and could they have more detail in their presentation? I'm synthesizing it down in that.
But the schools you don't really want the school district taking up as much time as the FinCon takes to go through that whole budget, because then that just adds to the length that we're all there spending our special time together.
I'm not advocating anything.
Yeah.
I'm passing on one
Yeah.
person's. I promised this person I would.
That's great. Yeah, and like I said, the budget book is nearly complete, and the line item detail that they're looking for is available online, and we'd be happy to provide that to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, your turn. You want to ask her any questions?
I'm all set.
I had a question for you, but you made me forget.
Pardon me?
I said I had a question for you, but I think you made me forget.
Well, that's good.
Oh,
No,
my question was, this up here is what we're going to see at the town meeting, right? It's not what a person's going to see when they go to the ballot box. Those have traditionally been different.
Valid
Right.
questions are, there's a statutory form that's required.
Right.
to pose the question.
Which just makes it somewhat confusing, because as I recall, the numbers aren't usually in there on a ballot. And so, it's very, to say that people are, like, I go to town meeting, I follow these things. I have come to the ballot before and not remembered which is which. And it's because it's not the same as it's in the warrant book. It's a different format, it's a different wording, it doesn't have numbers, and it's strange. So, I'm just gonna push again, like, it's the simpler we can make those ballots, the better we are.
Oh, I fully agree.
So, and I think, having 5 or 6 of them, I don't even know if that's gonna fit on one page, like, that's a lot of wording to fit on one page, so.
Okay, I'll just summarize my earlier comments. I really believe, I said in a previous meeting of the selectmen, I think a lot of the comments made tonight were valid. I just believe that, strongly, by the way, that we need to offer the Wenham voters a choice. As I said at the outset of this section of the budget, presentation tonight, if they're all for the schools and they think the school override is well-deserved, fine. And if they think that the town's override is well-deserved, fine. If they don't think the town's override, we're going to have to cut. And I already described a minute ago, we'll check again with our lawyer, but nevertheless, you have another bite of the apple or two, at least. And that I think we should give them a choice, the town people a choice, and that's my position the other night. And I do appreciate the input coming tonight to give me another, I've learned some things, but, so I'm going to call for a vote. So I move that we have the option 2, which we have, option 1, messed that up, that we have 2 override votes, one from the town and one for the school, Hamilton Regional School District, and the Hamilton Regional School District would be $723,722, and for the town of Wenham, it would be $361,640, totaling $1,085,363.
I will second your motion, Jack, and I support the explanation by both parties to bring us to where we are at this point. But I do believe that the two options makes it much more viable for the voters.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
Okay, 2-1. Thank you for coming and sharing your
Thank you.
thoughts with us, and it was informative.
Do you need us to stay for the debt exclusion information, or do you feel comfortable with that? Do you need us to stay for the debt exclusion question, or do you feel comfortable with that?
I don't think, no, we don't, we're not,
Just
we're okay.
insert
Thank you.
Thank you.
How long do you have to hobble along with that? That's another week or two?
Start PT on Friday.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say 4 more weeks.
Well, thanks for coming when you're in your condition. All right. Okay, that took a while. Let's see.
Okay. Next thing is the loose leaf.
Pardon me?
Loose leaf.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Another override. Yeah. A loose leaf collection has been, actually, even though the Hamilton Regional School District folks would be disappointed in what I'm about to say, again, people are more interested in loose leaf collection in this town than any other subject, and that, by far, and that there's nothing that competes with that. So that it costs money, and fundamentally Bill Tyke is basically saying that he could use his troops basically to do some stormwater, whatever it is, certifications, which we're at, I think it's probably going to cost us $45,000, $50,000. But I know that everyone I talk to, loose leaf collection, Jack. So we're going to put an override article on the budget after we pass the major ones to find out whether people want to spend another $50,000.
You're proposing that we're going to do that. We haven't decided to do that yet.
We haven't decided to do
Okay.
that yet.
Okay. The way you said it made it sound like we were going to do
We're coming
it.
off the school, and I'm still here in the selectmen, but anyway,
Okay.
yes, we're proposing that. And that We looked at various alternatives, put it in, asked the people, but I think the cleanest way is to, here it is, it's going to cost $50,000, although we have excess up there, it's approximately $50,000, we think. Although if the town does it, if the town doesn't do it, it's exponentially more, which we can't afford, according to Bill Tyag. So I'm going to just read the article. Shall the town of Wenham be allowed to assess an additional XXXX? I believe it's around $50,000 in real estate and personal property tax for the purpose of funding loose leaf pickup for the year beginning July 1, 2021. And that would presume that one of two things, that either Bill Tyke's highway folks do that, and we have to have somebody else do the stormwater for approximately the same amount of money, or we manage to get a private contractor, which is highly unlikely to do it for anywhere near that amount of money. And that we did get, Bill Tyke did get one quote. It's kind of scary. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's a hell of a lot more than $50,000, and I wouldn't be proposing that. So I'll open it up to discussion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
And as far as discussion, again, this is giving the voters the option to decide on a line item specifically. If this is important to them, then that's what the boss says, that's what we do. If they vote it down, then it goes away.
So I understand that principle, and I agree with it to a certain extent, but truthfully, I feel it's a little bit fiscally irresponsible for us to say that they're not one of those, the override for the operating expenses and the other override are not contingent. So we'd have we could potentially be telling our staff and everyone else, if the operating override doesn't pass, okay, you have to cut $300,000. But we're going to.
You could still vote for having
But we're still going to give you the opportunity to vote on your leaves. I feel like it's sort of if it passes, yeah, we get to vote on leaves. If it doesn't pass, we're not going to have the resources to do leaves.
So how would you structure this then?
I would structure it, as I think someone mentioned, I would structure it, and I don't know legally how it would be, but if the override passes, then we move on to, if the operational override passes, we move on to the leaf article. And if the operating override does not pass at town meeting, then we pass over the leaf article. The other thing about that is I need a lot more information about the 50,000, because clearly my understanding was the 50,000 was the cost of the loose leaf pickup.
It's the cost of the highway department highway department can either do loose leaf pickup, and they have the equipment to do so, or if they would prefer, actually, to basically do the stormwater.
MS4.
MS4, and so it's the same troops he'd be using. So he can't do the stormwater and do the loose leaf pickup. So if he does a loose leaf pickup, we'd have to hire somebody else to do the stormwater for approximately $50,000. That's the thing, but.
That is the piece of information I did not have. That hiring an outside firm to do the stormwater would cost $50,000.
Yeah. And then that would free up the highway department to continue loose leaf. If we didn't do that.
Is that what the cost for the stormwater evaluation? Okay, if it is, it is.
Bill Tyke has verbally told, he didn't put it, he basically said it's $45,000 to $50,000. I'm using the higher number, it's $50,000.
Okay.
But anyway, I
did have the same question, Catherine, last time we talked about this.
I like your suggestion.
Just the.
No, I like that. So how can we how can we rejig this and say, okay, it's contingent upon a favorable vote on the override, which we'll get to before we get to the loose leaf. If it fails, we pass over the loose leaf, and if it's successful, the override successful, then we take up a loose leaf override.
I'm sure there's a way to do it. We'd have to talk to council, but
Yeah.
I would say, if we could probably do.
Okay.
We have done this in the past with one is only actionable if another one has passed. So we would say something like, for this one, it'd say, provided the operating override under Article Section is approved, to see if the town will vote for loose leaf.
Right.
I like this free legal advice. This is,
It was a good meeting for him to drop
right all
in,
the
huh,
time.
right?
good
That's what it
idea.
used to be like.
Well, every other
Back to
Tuesday,
town
you're
just
more than
in
welcome.
time.
I'm going to move that we put the loose leaf on there as amended by Catherine, and
As a contingency
it's a
article.
contingency article as Paul just described. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good.
Okay,
Where are we
we
here?
on C then,
Regroup, where are we?
on the personnel policy? Is that what you have next?
Shut this off, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this has to do with the, a public hearing to adopt changes to the town's personnel policies. I have the motion, I think it's straightforward, we can talk about it. So I'll make the motion first. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to conduct a public hearing to adopt and/or make changes to the following town's personnel policies. Just looking, equal employment opportunity, anti-discrimination and harassment, including sexual harassment policy, electronic communications and information technology acceptable use policy, Family Medical Leave Act. Said hearing to be held on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020, at 6:30 PM in the Selectmen's Conference Room at Wenham Town Hall, 138 Main Street, Wenham, Mass. 01984.
I'll second your motion.
All right, nothing to add other than this is a procedural way we
Yeah,
changed.
originally, we were gonna do the first two policies at March 2nd, but we deemed March 2nd, we could skip over that meeting, and we, since then, have got our next policy, which was the Family Medical Leave Act, so we have an extra policy, and we can all group them together on March 17th.
Medical Leave Act just came into play.
No, we just didn't have a policy.
Oh, we didn't? Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passed.
Okay.
Iron Rail Soccer Field Use Agreement Renewal.
Okay.
So, once a year, we have the opportunity, do I have this?
No,
Well, I do, but I think Anthony's the one that can really update us unless you know
I know.
what he knows. I don't care who.
I know more than he knows, actually.
That's fine. Good, Jack. Please give us the full explanation,
Well,
in-depth explanation.
Yeah. So once a year, according to the agreement with the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association, which is a 20-year agreement with a 10-year out. I think there's another 3 or 4 years to go on that before we can opt. Nevertheless, there's a clause in there that states that the town annually can ask for a renegotiation of the contract if they notify the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association on or before March 1st.
Right, this is part of the sublease agreements,
Yeah,
right?
part of the sublease, and so we have a one-time opportunity to do so. And there's some questions about payments. We've had these concerns and questions before. There's some people are still in arrears, and we want to make sure that the town is paid for using the soccer fields. We've amended and reduced some of these fees, and right now, one or more of the tenants are delinquent, and we basically have no ability to fix that if we don't exercise our option in writing before March 1st to tell Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer that we want to discuss a renewal, changes of a lease agreement. But it's all based upon some money and delinquent payments. And that, so if we don't do this, we have to wait another year, and we may have a lot of hand-wringing and arm-twisting to see if we can get paid the modest amount of monies that we're asking for this. And so it's...
So what you're saying is that we're at the vantage point right now to exercise that option.
and if we don't do it, we have no...
We lose it until next year.
That's right. And we can hope that these delinquencies get remediated, but, you know how much trouble we had last year with this.
Correct, yeah.
Right, and so I'm recommending that, that we indeed move the Board of Selectmen notify the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association of their intent to not approve further sublease agreements with Landmark and Academy of Penguin beyond August 31, 2000, where failure to comply with the payments as defined in Section 4, subsequent A. And we may have other changes, but nevertheless, we just want to have a one-sentence thing that just says, yes, we exercise our right to basically sit down and talk and propose some amendments to it, and that's it. And we may actually have very few amendments if indeed we can be assured of payments, something like that.
I will second your motion.
Questions?
Just so that I understand, so what we're saying here is take notice, which we need to do by March 1st, that we are not intending to approve any further sublease without compliance and without further discussion. Is that what that we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
All in favor?
Aye.
You know, hopefully, we won't have to have hand-wringing meetings in this, but,
There's a, I'm sorry, there's a letter just for the selectmen to sign after the meeting that we'll send off to the Youth
all
Soccer
right.
Association.
And you can explain this to Don Lake, and that he knows that,
Yes,
yeah.
This is coming.
yes.
Okay. Good.
Just for, the Hamilton and the Youth Soccer Association is not the issue. It's the tenants using the field not paying us. And so,
Yep.
and that we're very pleased that Hamilton won the Youth Soccer. Anyway, okay, what's next?
Oh, sorry.
Review a potential vote to place several draft articles on the warrant sounds like me.
We have guest speakers.
We
a lot
have
of
guest speakers, a lot of guest speakers. So we've been taking them one at a time, and it seems appropriate, yeah. So I guess this is a good enough place to start.
Yeah, I don't know who's, is this
I don't know who's,
Margaret or Jackie? Jackie, who's going to take this first one?
Paula.
Oh, Paul, sorry, Paul.
Paul can't
I'm just getting
believe,
used to that free legal advice.
he can't believe he's
Still free.
actually, we're actually potentially going, yeah, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Paul Weaver, former town council and town moderator, and a 40-year resident of Wenham until the end of 2015.
And an all-round great guy.
Yeah, also true. Also true. This board will remember back in, let's say from 2010 to 2015, a lot of time was spent figuring out how everything was supposed to work in the town. Some of this has to do with being a pre-charter town and some other stuff, and a lot of Lauren Goldberg time went into my head, at least at the time. But to make a simple discovery of it, in 2014, you gave me some money to hire somebody, Melanie Giacalone, to update the legal base study. This was a document handed to me when I started in 1978 or whatever, and which then set out how everybody is appointed, what authorities they have, and what all the bylaws were. But that became obsoleted over the 37 years, and the legal base study brought it forward, and Melanie and Diane went through 37 years of town meetings, bylaws, see what state law, federal law had changed, what had to be corrected. We brought that back. And also growing out of those discussions and some other committees and so forth, we ended up proposing Article 16 of the 2016 annual town meeting, which was designed to clarify certain reporting and basically to establish the responsibility and authority of the board of selectmen as the general executive of the town to sort of coordinate all the independent boards and so forth. So, this is creditable to Molly Martins, if we remember back to that person. She said, we don't want to change the scope of responsibility of independent boards. We want to make sure it all works in parallel. And so Article 16 did that. It was passed. At that point in time, we said, whew, good. We got that cleaned up. We got the legal base study come forward. Diane, go post it. Diane came back and said, no can do. This is an incredible IT task. And she made a suggestion, did some research, and found this company called General Code, who are in the business of basically supporting town charters on an electronic platform that would go online. And so this article, and so that process began. You authorized us to hire General Code, which we did, and I think they began to work in 2016-17, and we processed to a draft, which got to the point, and my no longer being town council, we said, okay, we got to send it to the new town council, to Cobbleman and Page. And there it rested for years because Lauren was too busy to look at it, and because there's a lot of history which you don't need to know about. But the answer is, finally, Peter and I managed to get Lauren to come to a meeting, and in January, I think it was January 20th or 14th or something, 2019, we spent an entire day, a group of people, Margaret and Jackie, and anyway, all of us, going through this process, figured, and got it back on track. We got to get it. It had fallen off the agenda, the work agenda at General Code, because they kept waiting and waiting and waiting. They said, no, we can't wait for you. So anyway, we got it restarted. It's now done. It's been fact-checked, and these guys can verify that. I've done my best, particularly on the first one of these, the general, the recodified the general bylaws. That's the piece that relates to the legal base study update. This is the automation of, so instead of a printed document like this, you will have a statement which is very clearly organized, consistent, and I will tell you this, when I first read through the draft that's now finalized here, it was like a huge load was lifted off my head. All the years of trying to figure out some of this, and this. It just begins, it's perfectly logical, it's searchable, it's updatable, and it basically makes no substantive changes in the law. The substantive changes were in Article 16 in 2016. This simply puts it into a format that works on their platform. And there are a number of other towns. We know Middleton, was that who we? At least we're going to get a full list for town meeting. But anyway, so the point is, I'm here to say this is, for me, this is the completion of a project where what I used to know is now going to be available without you having to ask me anymore about it. So it's now ready, and so this is prepared to go on, and I'm working, helping review the commentaries that would go with this. You do have the choice here. There are two pieces to this. Now, Margaret, correct me if I don't get this right. The general code has to do with the bylaws and the organization, and it's a statement just like this, but in a much more modern and integrated and searchable format. The second thing is we do exactly the same thing, the zoning bylaw, which becomes a part of the ordinance, the code of the town of Wenham. The new thing would be the bylaws and the zoning, and all those things become one document on one platform. But because changes, even ministerial changes in the zoning bylaw, require the planning board's approval, so the suggestion is to have two separate articles that produce one completed platform. It could be done, but it could also be, we also have a draft to do it in one. So you have another two-in-one choice to make here. I think the planning board is comfortable with this now, as of, was it last night?
Yes, the planning board held their public meeting to discuss the changes. They actually continued it once so they could get more in-depth and see what all the changes were. I don't know if you have in your packet.
We do either.
We have hundreds of pages.
We do.
Yeah, our binder's grown a little today.
Yeah.
Well,
The zoning amendments.
goes on for pages.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Work, but the zoning part of it was, mostly ministerial, and there was some grammatical errors that general code picked up, because general code went through everything,
I'll be right
line
back.
by line. And we saw some places where the names of organizations that we refer to, state organizations, had changed over the years, so we changed those. Some places where there were references that didn't make sense, so we fixed those. But the other part of it is just renumbering and reformatting, so that all of our codes and bylaws match. Again, the planning board did vote to recommend this to town meeting. The difference between the one or two votes is a zoning bylaw vote
Yeah,
has
that's a
to be
good point.
two-thirds.
Yeah.
The general does not, it's just a majority vote.
So
So
they
those are
both
sort of-
need to be voted.
Both need to be
Yeah.
voted, but by
Separate.
different amounts, and so I'd forgotten about that piece.
Yeah,
and
but
so, yeah.
separating them.
So that probably argues in my mind for the two-vote thing, because, shall we say, sooner or later, you're going to have to fix the zoning bylaw, and hopefully it can ride along on the introduction of the general bylaw, but I certainly would like to get the general piece done, because then you have a working document that'll help everybody, both town staff and citizens can go on most of the questions that you're now paying Koppelman and Page to answer.
Yeah.
Are now going to be self-evident
Yeah.
with this document. So,
So I'm slightly confused. I get the concept and I live the history, but I think, Margaret, so this is several options.
There
The
are-
first one is to amend the general bylaws,
Yep.
The second one is to amend the zoning bylaws, and the third one is to combine them. This is starting to sound a little familiar. Right, but I think what I'm hearing is it would be preferable to have a warrant article for general bylaws and a separate warrant article for zoning bylaws.
I think it would
Yeah.
be easier.
It also allows the planning board to have a say at the meeting if they want. It's pretty simple. Now, Peter, I think it was, we'll blame Peter for my involvement here. He said, you know, it may be that we'd like you to come and present this to town meeting. Now, I haven't discussed this with Trudy. I'm happy to discuss with Trudy. I'm happy to do it or not do it. I'm happy to draft something for Trudy to read, whatever. But at least my sense is I may have some credibility with voters who are wondering, if you look at the if you read the side-by-side comparisons of either one of them, it's obvious that it's ministerial. It's translating something. Used to be called A, now called 1. It's the same stuff. So it may be that at least some voters would be reassured by the context that I could provide. The commentary will make clear that there are no substantive changes. The law changes happened in 2016. So this is really to enable the tool for everyone to use going forward. And so then would be a majority vote on the general and then a 2/3 vote on that. But they're two pieces of the same puzzle. It becomes one document, right?
It does.
Yeah. So,
But amendable separately.
Yes.
oh, then going forward, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Because-
the point about this is you can amend anything you want by a vote any year. The problem is how do you convey that to people so that you always have up to the minute reference to determine whether the swimming pool fence is 4 feet or 3 feet.
Right.
You know, for example. What?
So if,
Probably 3.5.
my overarching question is, how long do you think this would take to explain?
Well, if Paul
a
did it,
town-
it'd be 5 minutes. Somebody else would in an hour.
I don't know, Paul could take an hour.
I mean,
No, I'm just-
I have an explanation. Well, first of all, Jackie and I are working. We had a meeting while you were having your executive session. We had a meeting about what to say in the commentary. We're trying to be open, at the same time make clear this is all ministerial stuff. We're going to make it possible for anybody who needs to see jot, line, and tittle. They can go look, and if they look, they're going to be clear to them there's nothing really changing. We're not really changing anything. I think in the context of shall we say, from my perspective, this is simply what in the draft of my comments, what I said was, well, this is like we have a document written in Old English, and the people in town can no longer speak or read it. And so we're proposing to translate that into modern English and put it on an electronic platform so you can go online and read it. That's basically what we're doing. And I think if it's presented that way, hopefully they will recognize that, and with the context that this is not some sort of off-the-wall or hasty decision to come forward with this. This has been a long time coming,
Most
and
people
it's
who come to town meeting will-
really necessary for all the work that went in the years before to become actually functionally useful for everyone. So.
Well, I, for one, have had such great confidence in you for all of the years I've
Bless
lived in
you.
town.
Thank you.
You preceded me,
Yeah.
that after the work you have done, and others, Jackie, and
Yeah.
Who has this one? Let's see.
Oh, a lot of people. I mean,
let's
Okay, good.
let's keep the process
Yeah,
moving,
right,
in my
yeah,
opinion,
yeah.
and thank you for being
yeah.
here.
Oh, well, no, well, Wenham's very important to me.
I
So
know,
I'm happy to do this. And as I say, if
You too, it.
I will get in touch with Trudy if you vote to put this on.
Right.
And then just to see what her preference is on how we go about putting it to the voters, taking as little time as possible, but as
But
much
being
time
clear.
as is necessary to get them comfortable. I mean, my personal visceral concern, and it's what I've been discussing here, is that I've seen other things come in, and if you don't take enough care to position it, somebody will stand up and ask a question that nobody has the answer to, and suddenly it all dissolves.
Right.
So
That's would be my
you want
concern as
to
well.
do as much as you can without taking too much time.
Right. So just,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
I
going to make that
needed that.
change. Oh, it's coming back up.
I actually had a
was gonna make the
last
change for you.
question that
Wait a second, it'll pop up.
now I have forgotten.
Thanks.
Yeah, the motion just would need to specify the two.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to read this motion and amend it as we go along, because I think to reflect the discussion, this motion would be that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the two general code articles onto the warrant for for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. And I guess maybe to clarify, one of them would be for the general bylaws, and the second one would be for zoning. Do we need,
You have general code, general bylaw 1, and is there another motion for the zoning?
She just said both and within that motion.
yeah, I don't think there was another
There'll be
one.
two separate.
So this is
Two
sort
separate
of
articles, yeah.
a motion that this be voted on in two separate articles. And so I guess we're actually, which we haven't been doing, but we're actually inserting two articles onto the warrant with this motion. Does that make sense?
Or one part, A and B, or whatever, whatever you want. Sure, two articles, or
Yeah.
one article with A, Section B, as differentiated by Paul a minute ago,
Okay,
whatever.
so that's the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, whatever I just said.
Did that make sense for your minutes, Catherine? Enough sense?
I think we need to, joking aside, we need, is it two articles?
Two articles.
Okay, so we're moving
And if
both
you,
articles.
can you
then.
go back to the slide just before? So yeah, so
Okay,
we can do
right.
it separately if we want to, but we're voting to add to the warrant one article that, to recodify the general bylaws, and one article to recodify the zoning bylaw. So two separate articles,
Right,
yes? So that's the motion.
right, seconded.
More discussion? All in
All
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Can't even
Right.
actually believe this is going to be on
you, Paul.
at a town meeting. Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
it's wonderful.
Your check is in the mail for all your work, too.
Right.
As usual.
Yeah, right.
If I may make just one last request,
Sure, I'll
is it
find out.
happened for reasons of many people's schedules. I would ask you to put this as early in the warrant as can otherwise be rationalized, because the evening after at 7 o'clock is my wife's memorial service. So for me to do this and then recompose myself and head across to the church.
Okay.
So I mean, I think we've talked about this almost never. I don't remember going past 6 o'clock, which would be fine if I had to do it at quarter to 6, not a problem. But it'll be nicer if there's some other stuff that could come after it that would be a little better for me to change hats.
Okay.
No
Well,
problem.
We have the order of them on later to decide, so we'll take that into account.
There are no more questions for me, I'm going back to the...
I don't think do anybody else have any more questions?
All set.
Thanks for everything, Paul.
CPA, CPA appropriations. We have, I'm not going to, do we have? So this is all the motions that will be in the article. Do we have a motion at some point that actually puts this article onto the agenda, onto the warrant?
Well,
Perfect, so we'll let, I guess that's why you're here to talk
That's
about it.
why I'm here.
Okay, so we'll let you explain it, and then we'll
All right.
put it on the warrant.
Patrick Waddell, 5 Great Pond Road, and on the CPC. So, first, I just want to acknowledge Arthur Burt's passing. He passed this winter, and he was not on the CPC this last year, but we do miss him greatly.
bet.
He was a good friend. We had a very light docket this year. We had 3 applications submitted, 2 to be recommended to town meeting. First being town hall debt for $124,000, which is standard each year. And then one for the Wenham Canal bench by the Open Space and Rec Committee,
Oh, yes.
which will be one large piece of granite, which will be delivered there for $1,200.
Where is it going to be?
It's going to be on the canal on the right-hand side.
Oh, the canal, the Wenham.
Wenham Canal, Old Town Way,
Oh,
yes.
here it is, wait.
Oh,
It was originally supposed to be
far down, or is it?
about halfway. So I believe it's the 3-mile canal, so about a mile and a half. Salem Beverly Water Supply Board has
I know the
designated.
area well.
Yeah, they've designated where it's going to be.
Very different than where it was originally
Yes.
destined
Yes.
to.
It was going to be on Cedar Street. I think it was a nice location,
Yes.
but
Got a little bit miscombobulated.
yes. Yeah.
So, okay, so the Salem Water Water Supply has agreed to this new location.
They have, yes. And
Good work,
the
whoever did that.
the
I'm
canal
guessing Missy got
does,
involved in that.
the canal does get a lot of use, dog walkers, runners, joggers, bikers.
Now we'll have a bench, and we've got the bat boxes down there, the bat houses.
Yes.
That
Oh, I
Matt-
was thinking batting.
And we discussed,
Michelle's son did for his Eagle project.
yeah, which is great, kill the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
We discussed engraving the block of granite, but then the cost rose quite quickly.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
At $20 a letter. We also, the community house came to us. We had voted to grant them, I believe it was $50,000 in exchange for a historic preservation restriction in perpetuity. They balked at that, and we believe that the 29-year restriction fits with what we've done with the Wenham Museum and doesn't require legislative approval, because anytime you go to 30 years and beyond, you need legislative approval. So we...
Historic district, I mean, it's not legislative, historical commission.
Historical commission.
Historical.
Okay. Yeah. So 29 years avoids
You
that.
don't have to go through that.
Yes. Thank you.
I have none of this on my screen here.
Okay.
Well, you want to just talk about what's on the screen? So these are our recommended transfers. So 10% of the intake each year, $42,675 to open space and rec, community housing, and historic preservation.
Oh, okay. So you've got the breakdown.
Yes, and then 85.
As designed, yeah.
Yes, 8,500 for administrative reserves, and then the balance, $290,225 to the budgetary reserves.
This is
So-
clear. I
What's
mean,
that?
didn't mean to sound surprised, but this is very clear. Sorry,
Sure.
didn't mean to sound surprised there.
That's good, thank you.
So Anthony, what's up there is different than what's on our computers. So must be a revised edition up here.
There's some additions that we've made since you had the packet.
Oh, okay.
So I can't follow it, okay.
I did, oh, yeah, okay. I did have some stuff, though, on the,
Yeah, some stuff, not that stuff.
okay.
So this was really a light season for
Yeah.
us. We only had the 3 applications, and we were recommending 2 at a town meeting.
And all of the recommendations are actually ones that people have seen before. I mean,
Yes.
debt, the bench, and the
Yes.
community house, right?
Yes.
So not completely unfamiliar for people who went to town meeting last year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Were there any late applications that didn't get adjudicated by the committee?
We thought there was going to be a lead application, but it did not come in, and that was from the Affordable Housing Trust, but that did not come in.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yep.
I'm familiar with the
Never.
fact that there wasn't one.
Never deliberated on that. I wasn't
I
unaware.
know.
Yeah, so
I know.
maybe next year.
And just an update on the committee, we've been very active in reaching out to other groups as well. We're going to bring Greenbelt in, Crystal Point, to talk about conservation restrictions, agricultural restrictions. We have a meeting with Hamilton CPC, with KP Law to talk about the Act itself. We're looking to have a joint meeting with the Hamilton CPC, and we're also looking to meet with the schools. Just nothing, we have nothing pending, but we just want to open those lines of communication.
Where you can
That's
garner for information or communications.
Know what's upcoming, know what
Absolutely.
projects are coming. And we're also probably expanding our meeting scope from just the fall, in the spring, all the way through the year.
But not changing your
Deadlines?
deadlines.
No.
So you're
No.
going to take applications whenever, they have to be in by whenever, a certain date,
Yeah,
usually the
I think
beginning.
it's like January.
January.
It's usually
January.
January.
right after school vacation, Christmas
Yes.
break.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So essentially, those other meetings you would have would be to discuss some of the other things you talked about, expand
Yes.
on some things, and
Yep.
do some procedural stuff.
Yep.
It's great. And nice that everyone is willing to do that.
Yes.
But I won't be able to
I'm not sure
sell-
everyone is, but.
I won't be able to sell the CPC to new recruits as you only meet 4 or 5 times a year anymore, so I'll try though.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great. Okay. So the motion is I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the CPA appropriations article that we just saw onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Second?
Further discussion? Putting this on the warrant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now,
I guess that's time. You gotta go.
so,
You mean called?
So,
yeah, so now, okay. I was
Yeah,
going to say, didn't we just talk about this?
yeah,
Okay.
so when we originally put together the agenda, and then we had those languages for the zoning article and for the general bylaw, that we'll see that we don't need item 3, this, because you already handled that.
Right.
Adopt the changes to the zoning bylaw, you already handled that.
Right.
Article, this 5, you already handled
Handled that.
that. So now we're on the school debt exclusion,
Okay,
which that's what they were talking about earlier. We don't.
right.
We just got to double check the number, but other than that, that would be the,
Right. This is a debt exclusion, so there'll be an, what am I trying to say here?
ballot.
A ballot vote,
Yeah.
thank you, as well.
Yes.
So I guess it's just probably a simple motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert, do we have the general number? It's something like, I have it,
We were trying to sew it up today.
just, an order of
Did Vinnie give
magnitude
us
number?
anything?
Didn't Nikki give them the handout with the 21 articles on it?
Oh, yes, right here.
Yeah, you got a paper copy tonight of it, Catherine.
You did, huh?
With what? No.
No, I mean the amount for this,
Oh, yeah.
for the capital,
It's a 958.
958,000,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a 10-year.
Right. I just wanted to give people the idea. So move the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the school debt exclusion FY21 capital article onto the warrant for April 4th, 2020. 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form and certainly subject to having the correct number.
Second.
Discussion? No?
All set.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have a debt exclusion article.
This is the fire truck.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to ask you to, if you don't mind, explain a little bit, because this sounds like a sort of a Chinese menu. Funding, borrowing, spending, purchasing, subject to debt.
This
I'm
is-
not sure what
this
we're
is
doing.
This is a KP.
Okay, I can
Gave
tell
it to
that.
us, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell that.
So it's, we're still working on the best option on how to borrow for this. So I think that's why the borrow spend, the language that's used, whether or not we bond this, or there was some other lease to option, so, but this is gonna be a debt exclusion for the borrowing at the truck at $475,000.
So that's if we lease it. A debt exclusion would be less. The fire truck's only gonna cost $250.
No. Fire truck's gonna cost $475. That's the price of the truck, and then the interest on,
So if we paid, we don't have it, but if we paid cash,
we pay $475.
So it's still not, when we get to town meeting, is this article that we're, I think, about to put on the warrant, going to specifically say which option we've
it better.
chosen?
Yes.
So we're basically just saying, put some article, we're making a motion to put some kind of article authorizing one of these things.
Be a 10-year
for-
debt exclusion, probably a bond, a
So you'll
band.
have a dollar figure.
You're talking a band, Jackie?
It's a little hard to,
Yeah, this was very fluid, too. We
Yeah.
just didn't get,
yeah, just to put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
on the
and
warrant
so
without
we did
knowing what it
speak
is.
to our financial advisors on this item, and I think the confusing amount with the figure, so originally we had plugged 570,000 into our capital budget when we were recommending the 10-year lease, and that was all in with the lease and the interest for the 10 years for the truck. So it was always a $475,000 truck plus the interest. 475 being higher than you may see in other municipalities because of the special height, because of the height of our garage doors across the street. So in talking with our financial advisors, right now we're looking at a 10-year ban for this fire truck. So this is based on borrowing that 475 plus the interest payments we'd pay back. And it looks like a 10-year ban right now. We can't go longer because of the useful life of the vehicle, and shorter is kind of out of our budget
But this includes the
capacity.
interest payments,
The $475 is the cost of the truck plus interest.
plus interest. That's what I
Plus
was
interest.
asking a minute ago.
Correct.
Well, but
You
those
know what
articles.
the interest rate?
Well, they.
No, because we're doing bans now rather than bonds, so the interest rate changes every year.
Right.
So we can't
It's like a
as
variable.
accurately forecast what the total interest is
Do you
going
know
to
what the
be.
first year interest rate would be?
Typically,
In other words, what's the first year charge going to be?
so the first year is going to, we're just paying interest,
Interest.
and it's gonna be $9,500. But that's the first year's payment, and it's interest only, and then we pay the rest of it over the second 9 years. And that's where every summer, our financial advisors will look at the market and look at the interest and generate a
Adjust it.
budgeting number for us for the following year, which is gonna relatively be between $64,000 and $71,000 a year for years 2 through 10.
Say that again, how much, what was that?
64 to
$64,000 to $71,000 payments for years 2 through 10, based on the fact that the interest rate fluctuates every single year.
So if we had the cash, which we don't have, this is going back to the same question I asked a few minutes ago. If we had the cash
This would be the total.
and we paid it immediately. So a minute ago, I asked you, does that include interest? You said yes, it was a truck plus interest.
$475 plus interest.
Okay.
Aren't these articles generally written to authorize the borrowing or whatever we're doing, banning of $475,000?
Knowing that we're also
knowing,
paying interest.
To include whatever interest is charged at the time that the bonding is done?
Adjustable interest
The
charge.
incidental and related costs.
So it's an adjustable annually.
It's unrelated, not unrelated, related.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that's how we've done it. If you look back at like the Winthrop fire suppression, if you look back at any of our other debt exclusions on past fire trucks, this is how we've structured the debt exclusion article, and this is how KP has continued to structure it since we switched to town council, so that's where we have that form from them.
Because we can't do, and we can't
We have no way of projecting the interest
projecting it,
rate.
and we can't get the debt. We can't obtain the debt or the bonding until we pass this article, which can really only speak to the actual cost of the equipment.
And the way that the bans function, if I can provide a little bit more clarity, we do have to go out for the ban every year. This is an annual process of getting the ban, so the interest rate can fluctuate from year to year, but we can, in the budgeting process, make our payments a little bit more even, because the mandatory payment every year for a ban is the total interest. So even though that fluctuates, that's what's required of the town to pay. So when we go to pay our principal, we want to be paying our principal down every year because we don't want to pay as much of interest, and we want to pay it off in the 10 years, but we have a little bit of fluctuation in the principal payment. So the debt changes, but it's required. The principal stays the same, but there's a little bit more leniency in terms of when that payment's being made. So that's where we're working really closely, because these are such a new animal since the Municipal Modernization Act. But our financial advisors have worked with us on this strategy for this particular apparatus.
It fascinates me that you can't get a fixed rate for
Not
10
anymore.
years, 20 years, whatever the number is.
It could have was a bond, not the bands. That's
Yeah.
the difference.
Apparently, it's.
And
reported,
apparently
you know,
they're
it
not.
comes in different.
You know what the interest rate is for
Yeah.
forever?
Yeah, forever. It would be correct. It would be locked in if it was a bond, but they've advised us that the cost of going to bond is too great for the price tag on this apparatus and the lifespan on this apparatus.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a motion, is there a
Yep.
motion? Okay. Here's the Chinese menu option. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert some kind of article to authorize the funding, borrowing, spending, and purchasing of a fire truck, subject to a debt exclusion article, onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. And, yeah, I'll just say that.
Yeah, stop there. I'm second.
Just stop there. Okay, I do have any more questions? If not,
Except-
all in
Aye.
favor? Okay. Okay. So I don't think,
Who has this one? Let's see.
is it part of the, I
part of
can't, it's part of,
Capitals.
yeah.
Well, good.
So we have received a citizen's petition, which, will have to be reviewed by legal as to its form, as all of them are, but which we will not be voting on to put on the warrant, because the citizen's petition is by
Right.
law on the warrant.
That's what we were told.
So The petitioner is here. Do we wish to hear
Sure.
from him? Okay, if the petitioner would like to come up and explain what the,
Okay, now you're outed.
yeah, well, it's, public document, you kind of.
Yes. So since coming to town, I've always thought that a three-member board was kind of strange and not the best form of governance.
May I ask why?
Why? Well, if one person is sick, on vacation, out, you get limited discussion with 3 points of view as opposed to 5. You get a more limited constituency. 5 people will reach a much larger audience. So there's a much, I know all 3 of you, but I know people in town that don't know any of you. And I think with 5 members, there's less of a chance that someone doesn't know anyone on the board.
Do they know we're on TV?
Well, everyone watches, of course.
Of course.
So diversity of opinions, reach wider constituency, more discussion, better governments, spread the workload. I think this year, with the overrides that we have, we're in an abnormal year, but I think the abnormal is going to become the normal. I think we're going to see overrides repeatedly, operational, unless we don't have a very diverse tax base. We know that, and I see this just going on until we hit the 25 per thousand, and then we're in real trouble. So spread the workload between 5 people instead of 3 people. It's easier to achieve a quorum. To get 3 people in a room, 2, yes, but 3 out of 5 might be easier than 2 out of 3. If anyone were to be sick, injury, illness, vacation during the budgetary process, which is school vacation time, we could come to a standstill. You could have a meeting with 2 members, but if the 2 members don't agree, you can't go anywhere. So less likely that would happen with a 5-member board.
15 years, I haven't seen that happen yet.
Yeah.
Whether it was me or anybody else.
I just think a larger number, you enhance the discussion. And you can also have discussions outside the BOS. You guys can't talk about any of this.
You still can't,
You can if you don't have a quorum. If their quorum is not present, you can discuss. So you can have that discussion. You're not supposed to, if the 2 of you together, now you have a quorum, now you have.
plan to go against the other 3.
Exactly.
We can talk, we just can't talk about an agenda item.
Right, that's right.
Talk about the weather, the clothes we're wearing.
Yeah, see, what, you like Henry's chicken pot pie or?
Yeah, that's
So I'm hungry.
And right now, our participation in town and in the boards is at a recent high. So I see it as people want to be involved. So I want to put it out there to the people who say, does this make sense? Hamilton has done it, and meetings can be
Might not want to
chaotic.
lead with that.
Yeah, right. It's way down the list.
I was going to say, for example, because I personally have been well invested over there because they have such chaos most of the time.
But you don't know if that's the number of people or what it is.
That's the best word for it, but it's.
I've been on chaotic boards and I've been on very serene boards. With different numbers of members. So I think the members themselves will determine chaos or order. And the chair will determine chaos or order. There's not necessarily any increased cost to the town. The stipends are voted on by the Board of Selectmen, so the stipend does not have to increase, and the cost of printing may increase. I'm sorry?
Each of us get a stipend, so, presumably 2 more selectmen, if we had 5, are going to get the stipend equal to what we're getting right now.
Right.
You would vote on that, right?
Right.
The Board of Selectmen would vote on that. So it could be less. It could be keep the number the same and just divide it by 5 instead of by 3.
Pretty small number to begin with, but
Yes, yes.
That is an option, that would be an option.
I don't think anyone's here for the money.
well, if we are,
Starbucks.
we're in the wrong
Money.
place.
Starbucks, it's gotten me a few Starbucks.
So I've always, since I've been here, I've always thought that a 3-member board was fairly inefficient, ineffective, potentially. I've seen good things done. It's not a commentary on the current board, but I think a 5-member board enhances discussion and is a better form of governance.
So did you do a survey about how many towns, from my understanding, the towns in Massachusetts can either have a 3-member or 5-member board. They can't have 7, they can't have 2. So how many towns in your research have a 3-member board versus a 5-member board?
I don't have that.
Okay. Do you know if this is going to pass legal muster?
Well, he's going to find out.
I believe so. It's gone to the AG and through Diane, and I believe it is. I don't
Has the
think-
AG opined on it yet?
It went there and came back, so I believe they have. I'm not sure.
Ever heard anything?
That's the first I heard of that, but right now we have it sent to KP for review and for council to check on it.
I'll get you in a second. So that when would this, if this was passed at town meeting and it was in the form satisfactory to the AG or whatever, when would this take effect?
I would foresee it next.
It's not here, so that,
When and how, yes.
I think that would be up to the board to implement. This
Does it
did
have to be voted?
yeah.
the time.
A ballot vote? Isn't that the normal thing, a bylaw change?
I don't know, I wish we had Paul here, he probably would.
No, it's not a ballot question. What would have to happen is once town meeting, the results of town meeting goes to the Attorney General's office. At that point, if they said that everything was compliant, then I'm sure that there's I don't know what the statute calls, X number of days to call for, or you could wait for maybe the fall election. We haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Yeah.
I would-
Or
I
the
would-
next spring's election.
Or next spring's election, yeah.
And what volume of vote
Just a minute.
would trigger this?
It's simple majority of town meeting,
Simple majority.
if this was a
51%.
valid article.
Yeah. Harry, you want to say something?
Are you aware that this very same article proposal was brought to the town about 25 years ago?
I was not.
He was a toddler
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Are you kidding?
I was 25 years old then.
He was a toddler.
And read the town meeting notes and see.
Town has changed quite a bit in the last 25 years, and I do believe that our town meetings are going to become more difficult. Our budget processes.
Well, my point was, just a suggestion that perhaps you might go back and see what happened to the proposal.
And what did? It must have failed because there's only 3 of us here.
Jack.
Wow, that was,
Yes,
yeah.
and it was about 25 years ago.
What was the, was it overwhelmingly defeated, narrowly
Yeah, it was
defeated?
It was, and so it was basically withdrawn.
On the town meeting floor, you mean? Oh, wow.
So
I'll have to go back and look at that.
I have to agree that, 23 years is a long time. I do have some procedural questions that I just would want to be sure that everything we were putting forward could be put forward legally. But, it's a citizen's petition. It looks like it was signed by the right number of people, and from that point of view.
You need 10, he has
barring-
11. And that,
Right.
Has Diane certified the 11, by the way?
She has.
Okay.
And barring some legal issue why it cannot be on the warrant, it's on the warrant.
So this is not subject to our vote tonight?
No, no. Well,
Council has advised me to put this on the agenda for the selectmen to insert in, so I prepared a motion to, just a procedural to insert this into the
yeah, I mean, we
article.
can't vote no. On
Right.
the other hand, we need to acknowledge, I guess, that we know that this is going to be.
Well, it's more than subject to approval by town council. We have to understand whether this thing is legal, use a colloquial term, legal or not, so.
Right.
I know you've got subject approval formed by town council on every one of these things. This is our town council has to say the structure of what
The request is,
is,
motion is, right.
is, what do you call it, passes muster, legal muster, so.
Which it should. It's a one-word change to the bylaws.
Right. Well, I think we don't really know the answer to
That's
that.
what I'm saying, we don't know.
So
But it's
we'll-
subject to,
Right.
and we're going to have to know that sooner rather than later.
Right.
They're working on it.
Okay.
It's, by
Yeah, and I
right
think
on the
Jack's
warrant
question
until.
about, how many towns in the 350 communities have 3 versus 5 members.
Well, it's not going to be all 350, right? Because you have cities in there as well.
Well, you get my point.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's 100 or 150 or whatever it is,
It's one of
and what kind of success is there in finding population to fill the positions as well. You know,
But as I said, we are at a recent all-time high in participation, so there is a willingness right now for people to get involved in town government.
All-time high for what? I'm sorry?
Not recent high, for
You're talking about
participation. Wenham, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Our boards are filled now.
Thank God for Jackie
Exactly.
and the others who
Our
have
board.
pushed the community to
really?
pay attention to how your town government works.
Well, I think more people are paying attention now because they're seeing overrides, they're seeing the tax rates.
Participation has been very desirable, and I'm very, very pleased and proud, actually, to tell people that this program exists, so.
Well, I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I will say that, and Catherine will, and John knows as well, we struggle to put people on, the appointing processes in May, we struggle to get people to just send in a letter of interest. And that it's not uncommon that we have only one person who we beg to send in a letter of interest, and we appoint that person to a committee. So it's not like we have 5 people. There's a couple of popular committees. Yours is one, for example, the CPC. And that Board of Selectmen, we have, one candidate. And,
Well, yeah, at the moment, we'd be if this came about, we'd be searching, because we haven't had a contested selectmen's race until, well, we had one last year.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
The one before that was
Well, that was
5 years
semi-contested,
ago.
I suppose you can call
Yeah,
it contested,
yeah.
that's right. And,
So, we'll make sure, I guess this is the way this works.
Sure, yeah.
You've inserted it, we'll make sure that it's legally appropriate wording and whatever for the town meeting, assuming that it is. We'll have, I'm sure, an interesting
Lively
debate,
debate.
a lively debate on town meeting floor. And if there's anything that changes, of course, we'll let you know.
Excellent.
Meanwhile, Anthony, one of your troops is, an afternoon off here, I'd like to, not Jackie either, that I'd like to have a little research on how many towns, and not cities.
Just sent an email already.
Okay. And that's one question. And Harry, can you remember what year this last vote took place, approximately 25 years ago?
Yeah, in the mid-90s.
Okay, let's see if
Oh,
we can
that was 25 years
find
ago.
that. What was the vote in the mid-90s?
Yeah.
To go from 3 to 5, was it 3 to 5?
Sorry?
Was it, change the Board of Selectmen composition from 3 to 5?
Yeah, from 3. But, going back to this, sometimes I have in the back of my mind that whatever the citizen's petition is, it is.
Yeah,
And if they've written it incorrectly, too bad.
that's right.
I can't imagine because it's only one word.
No, I know, but I
There's a
mean,
one-word change, and it's a number to another number, which is not an even number, so I can't imagine that it's not.
Well, I
Might have
have,
changed the rules in the last 25 years, too. but-
right.
well, and I've, knowing that this was, I looked, many towns actually have procedures and for citizens petitions. And they usually do have some, statutory guidelines around what it needs to be in order to actually be realistically actionable at a town meeting and do what the intent is. And so I think that there are some things we have to look at.
I did read the MGL and followed that.
So we have to also decide where to put this on the agenda.
Yes,
because
we
you know
do.
what, this could take 45 minutes, and, we,
I agree,
we want to
Jack.
get,
Well, that's,
all items are important, but, that we don't want to lose a quorum and have somebody get up like they did last year. And go,
Then
I
cause
don't
us
see a
after.
quorum, I call for a quorum vote, and so we're gone, and
well.
so we want to
we've
make
got-
sure, at least, I'm not saying this is unimportant, I'm just saying, we have business we have to accomplish at town meeting, and we better get the business done so the town can function, come July 1. And that where we put some of these articles, not saying one is more important or less important than the others, but we have a little thinking to do on that.
I don't see this as Article 1.
No, probably not.
It will not be,
Probably should get
Article 1.
the budget first.
We have to have the
get
budget
money
done.
stuff
Yeah, we
done.
should probably do the budget
And
first.
the overrides are probably right behind it.
Yeah, all right.
All right, thank
You
you.
got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I think that places all of the warrants that we are aware of, all of the articles that we are aware of, on the warrant. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so now, Jack, do you have the next, so the next
what?
item is
Wait a minute.
placing the override and debt
different than
exclusion
my,
questions, so the ballot questions. I can't follow the line across, but I think you have that.
Final review and potential votes.
No, the vote to place override and debt exclusion questions on the ballot. Really important that we do that tonight. so is that me, or, I guess it doesn't really matter.
I don't even see it on here.
It's,
I'm looking at this right here. Where do you see that?
F?
Vote to place overriding debt exclusion questions on the April, didn't we do?
No, these are the.
We did the override and the debt, we did them both.
Well, these are the ballot
questions.
questions.
This is the ballot questions.
Not placing the warrants on the article. These are actually putting the ballot questions, which has to be done, what is it, 35 days at least before the election.
Right.
So we don't have those in front of us, right? Well, what is behind F? I mean, is it different than the regular ones we did?
So I was told this is the same way that you did it last year, that you
Right.
vote, you know the issues that are gonna be for us before you, and as far as the override questions and the debt exclusion, that you're just authorizing to put those on as to whatever form the
Patrick.
town council
So it has to be a
determines.
vote,
Hey,
a town vote,
Patrick.
town meeting
Put that
vote,
on the ballot.
to actually put it on a ballot. vote.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm just slightly uncomfortable with putting, well, not that we have a choice, but putting ballot questions on the, putting ballot questions on the ballot without actually seeing the questions. But we know that we have to do this, and we know they have to be approved by town council, so.
All right. Wing it.
So, you want me to make the motion? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL 59, Chapter 59, Section 21C, Clause E and K, to insert the operating overrides, it's a plural, right? And debt exclusions,
Plural.
exclusions, ballot questions onto the ballot for the April 9th, 2020 annual town election.
I guess there's only one debt exclusion, okay.
Well, there's a town debt exclusion and a school debt exclusion, and a town override and a
That's
school
true.
override, so there's a
That's two.
a total of, oh, and a leaf override.
All right.
Potential- Yeah, so that would be on the ballot, whether it's, it may not,
So plural.
so 5 override questions that we would seek counsel on. Okay, so that's the motion, to put, to,
But we make them plural, not singular.
yes, those are all of those are operating
Single.
overrides, debt exclusions.
Yeah, put S's on override and exclusion.
Yeah. So I think it's potentially, so there, on the ballot, there will be 3 operating overrides and 2 debt exclusions.
Yeah.
Right, 5.
Second.
Okay, more questions, comments? Everyone,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. So somewhere here,
Yeah. Because I don't have
somewhere
it.
here, we're supposed to be putting these in order.
Gee.
Final review of potential
Is that that
recommendations. Am I
list?
looking at the wrong? G,
Yeah.
I have G is to
We already done
review
it.
and potential recommendation
Oh, yeah.
votes, not put them in order.
So, I don't, do we have to vote on what order tonight? We can't do it tonight. I mean, this is,
Yeah, I
This is the
think,
last meeting, we have to go to print, so tonight is the last night.
all right, there we
Yeah,
go.
so-
There's 20 of them up there.
So we have to put them in some order, and that's probably the last thing that we have to do before tonight. Do I have the same 20 on this piece of paper? The 20, I have
Do we have,
21, actually. That one doesn't have,
Patrick Waddell's,
yeah, that doesn't have the
petition? I don't see
citizen's
that up
petition
there.
on. No, that one's not on. Late breaking.
Yeah, that was late breaking.
So,
oops,
the
That's all right.
first, well, certainly the first 4 seem to be in the right order. Well, the Article 1, or levy limit budget, free cash to balance the budget, and the 2 overrides.
Yeah.
Catherine, can you clarify? 3
Well-
has now become 2.
Oh, gosh, I have a different list than is on here.
So do you want the
Okay.
override for the school and then the town, or town and the school?
Town and then the school. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think the town
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then
Good catch.
question for everyone. So this contemplates,
Oh, there's the citizen petition. Did you just add that now, didn't you?
yeah,
Got
he's
it.
very sneaky.
Sneaky is right.
So there are 2 free caches, free cash 2 used in 2 different ways, which are separated and which are close to what they're being used for. So there's a levy limit budget and the free cash to balance that. Well, it's not gonna, that free cash is not gonna balance the levy limit budget.
it does balance the levy limit budget, it doesn't balance the full budget.
Okay. Okay, and then the second,
Catherine, without that two, one doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It is.
Right,
One,
right,
two
right.
must balance one.
right. So, yeah, so I guess 1, 2, 3, 4? With 4 being 1, 2, 3, 4 town school, 5 being override for loose leaf pickup contingent upon, now what is that, 3? Whatever one the town.
Yeah, 5 is contingent on 3, got it?
Should the loose leaf one be right after the town override and before the school override?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, you said it was contingent, so yeah.
Yeah, so right after that.
Right.
So it's the override for the town, the contingent loose leaf, and then the override for the school,
I think
right?
we might be more productive to look at which ones we put on the back as opposed to the front, because.
I thought the first ones would be easy, but I see what you're saying.
Well, by the time you get to be like 10 and 12, I'd like a citizen's petition, could be a lengthy election of, what officers are we electing, by the way?
Well, that's the ballot.
Oh, that's the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to move the CPA appropriation up,
Yeah,
like, as far,
and number 18, Paul made a request tonight that we don't,
Oh.
so we should move that up.
Thank you, yes.
Because Paul spent a lot of time on this,
As
and
far as you
so
can.
he'll do this in 10 minutes, and, so I think it should be much higher than 18 to, to accommodate his request of us.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you also have the option to do a consent calendar for Articles 8, 9, 10,
Oh.
and 11.
Yeah, some of those
So,
simple money
Is that
transfers.
something you are interested in?
Oh, yeah.
terms of abbreviating
Yep.
the order?
Yep,
as long as we're comfortable that it won't take us, in your words, longer to explain what a consent calendar is than to actually vote on it.
Do it every year.
We did
we
that
do.
before.
Okay, I'm fine with it. Anything that was speed things up a little.
So that,
8, 9.
Yeah, that's a good one, Jackie. Yeah.
8, 9, 10,
Consent
11
calendar,
as
yeah.
written there? Okay,
Chapter 90 acceptance,
yeah.
throw that in there.
Yeah. But I think the CPA
Water
should
reserve
be, I think the
transfer.
CPA should be right after the consent calendar.
Yeah, okay.
so can I clarify that the consent calendar is cemetery, both cemetery articles, water reserve transfer in Chapter 90?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then CPA. Mm. I don't know, do we want to do?
What about the Chapter 90 acceptance?
We just did that. We
Just
said
do
that. should be
Oh, you did.
Consent agenda.
So, so there are a bunch of bylaw ones, which I don't know where, to move those up any further would move them up in front of, like, the consent calendar, which.
Yeah.
Well, 18 and 19, we can put, after 12 or something. I don't know. No, actually, make it after 11.
So but you'd want to do all the bylaw ones together,
Yeah.
right? So water irrigation, general bylaw, demolition delay, general bylaw, recodified general bylaws, recodified zoning bylaws would all be together.
Yeah.
Well, demolition delay bylaw is new. I just think the recodified 18 and 19 is what Paul is going to be talking about.
Correct.
He's not going to be talking about 17, and that we're not going to talk about 16 either. So let's get 18 and 19, after, say, 11.
Can you clarify that's after,
After the consent calendar.
after the consent calendar but before CPA? 'Cause
Yeah, and I still think CPA should be before those.
I agree.
so
Yeah.
CPA then recodification.
Yes, the 18 and 19, yes.
Thank you.
Because it's not fair to Paul, he's asked us, he's going to memorial for his wife, And that if it's 6 o'clock, we're going to have lost the quorum anyway.
Well, if it's,
6 o'clock.
yeah. If, in years past, we would have adjourned before 6 o'clock.
Somewhere between.
Even if we weren't done.
3 and 4 was.
I agree.
So what I'm struggling with a little bit is we have the transfer from water surplus. It's kind of in there. And then a couple of new things that are meals tax and room occupancy tax. And then now we've split up the bylaw ones. So I guess I would agree with moving up the recodified ones.
Yeah, Paul can do that in 10
And
minutes.
then just follow those with the other bylaw ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So that the bylaw changes are all together.
Yeah, so yeah,
So recodify general, recodify zoning.
we're never going to get through all this in a timely fashion, so, we're,
I know, we do have to be careful.
We're gonna be,
And this is down by 10 from our bad year.
anyway,
Well, I guess what we do is get through as many as we can, right?
Mr. Chairman, may I recommend that we put election of officers at the end, because that needs to be carried through to the election?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
just switch the
Yep.
citizens petition and the
Yeah.
election of officers and ballot questions.
sure.
And maybe because we're doing this sort of on the fly, we could get just an email tomorrow
Mhm.
morning, so that we could just
Mhm.
make sure that we
Yeah.
did what we think
See
we
what it
did
looks like.
before you have to.
I mean, I can
Yeah, if you, when we're done, yeah.
do, yeah, you
Uh,
can have it.
No, I just saw, where did we end up putting the transfer from water surplus for,
That's
the
at
famous
tail
guy?
end right now.
Can you plug in, Jackie, and display it?
Yeah, I can.
yeah, that's a good.
I just need this blue piece
Okay,
for that whole cord. It's up to you.
whatever you need.
Like the demolition delay general bylaw, this is easier than the last time, but we're going to have a lot of people who don't, the word demolition just, was going
Well, that's why though.
to put people over the edge.
So so the codification bylaw changes would come first, and then all of the other bylaw changes, which are
I think that makes sense.
demolition delay, water irrigation.
Yeah,
I think those are the only other two,
that's the best we can do.
yeah.
Here it comes.
There we go. So, chapter, and so the red ones are the consent agenda. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, then new CPA, recodify. Bylaw.
Article 1 being the budget.
Meals tax. Transfer from water surplus. I only have one other suggestion, and that is to put the transfer from water surplus.
Yeah, that'd be a consent agenda, that's fine.
No, that, I don't know, that one is I was gonna move it up, but now I'm maybe changing my mind. It seems, in a strain, just like kind of stuck somewhere, but I'm not sure where it more appropriately fits. I don't know if it's consent agenda. People might wanna ask why, it's, what is it for, and that could engender a little bit more discussion than the other things that are really clear. You think that's a quick one?
Which one?
The transfer from water
I
surplus?
think it's very quick.
Yeah, it should go right in with the other.
Remember what this is, right? The one that we thought was 50,000, but it's really 150,000?
No, that's not the same.
No.
No.
Yeah, it is.
That is.
Yep.
Well,
They're up for.
How did it get to 35?
Oh, okay, no, I
Yeah.
got it.
That's the reserve transfer
Yeah.
at 35.
Yeah, which is.
I think you should label it something else. I mean, that's the scatter one, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Water
Let's
surplus
call it
plus
scatter.
Yeah, great.
Well, yeah, because the other one, am I not seeing?
That looks very routine, it's not routine at all.
This is routine, this is the not routine.
Right.
Transfer from the water surplus to,
For
for
scatter.
scatter, okay, did you just put in for scatter?
No, that was in your list.
And what does it say, what's that number there?
150K.
Yeah, that's right.
So I just feel like that maybe,
All of these some of these need to move up, we're never gonna,
we want the bylaw ones together. I guess I would at least move that up before the meals tax and the
yes,
room occupancy
absolutely.
tax.
And for the demolition delay bylaw, too.
Well, then,
For all,
well, then it would be
So
before
here?
all, so after CPA. Because I don't really
Yeah,
think.
yep.
Okay. Then the recodify.
Who would have known this would be so difficult?
Well, you kind of want it to make some sense and also be the most likely to.
Be productive, yeah, you want it productive.
Well, there's a good chance I'm not gonna get through 22, that's all,
Well, we have to get to, yeah,
Anthony, we had 30
right.
That's why we're trying to put the stuff we
And
absolutely have
and,
so the
you
town
know,
can function.
Infuriating.
we
We
would,
had
it would,
to move to another day.
we'll see what happens with the citizens petition, but it would be a little bit in bad form to say, oh, well, we're tired now, so we're gonna make a but then again, I guess it's the will of the people, if people want to adjourn after,
12 or
16 or after 20.
I can't believe that's not a 45-minute discussion.
The citizens
Which one?
petition.
Which one?
Well, with,
Citizen petition.
I can
Absolutely.
imagine there would be a lot of questions, because there's not a lot of substance in the actual petition, so imagine there'd be a lot of discussion or
So I
questions.
think you're right, Jack.
Okay.
If you can have somebody research the number of
I think
towns,
it's-
have 5 versus 3.
I already sent an email.
Yeah. To a certain degree, I feel like it's up to the people who are petitioning to provide some information as well. We can provide what we think we need if,
But if one of us selectmen are asked that question, I think, and we know it's a citizen petition, whether he gets the answer or not, we should have the answer.
I don't think we would be taking, I might be wrong about this, but we may opine on this.
I want to know what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't know.
The voters are going to
But
want
the
to know
voters-
what our feeling is because we're the current.
So our feelings,
policy.
but they shouldn't be asking us
I agree,
substantive
but-
questions, right?
I agree, but if he doesn't have the answer, I mean,
Well, I guess he doesn't have
Oh,
the
yeah,
answer,
but
but I would like to know the answer to that question.
yeah. Well, if
I'd
there's-
like to know a lot of things, actually.
We got a question.
No, I'm just wondering if you're all
Oh.
set with
I
this
think,
order.
are we set with this order?
Hold that up there, in case they want to just do the.
Let's look at the bottom ones first and see if there's any of those that we, which citizen petition, room occupancy tax, meals tax, demolition delay bylaw. And we can make an argument that many of these should be moved up, but there's only so many, there's
a
only so
lot-
many slots here, that's all.
There's a lot of conversation in some of those latter ones as well, too.
Yeah.
The meals tax.
Well, it
People
says-
don't know what that's all about.
Well, it shouldn't be a lengthy discussion one way or the other. Although we're going to have a couple of people get up and the room occupancy tax, but citizen petition, that's going to, hell, that might be an hour.
I'm wondering if the meals tax should have a different title. What are we actually doing in that article? Are we
That's-
adopting?
That's what it is, Kathy.
Yeah, but it's
It'll
the-
have a more formal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
This
It's,
is just for
Yeah,
our
okay.
understanding.
The brief
and
list,
ordering.
yeah.
yeah, okay. I think that's the best we can do with all.
I think so. I don't
Okay.
remember
Hold on,
ever
it's
having
going
to
up
struggle
front.
this hard in the past either.
In case they
Well,
want
it's
to
a-
do recommendations.
we've
you can
got
put it
a-
right there.
Oh, okay.
We've never had an override. That to me is the most, who knows, how long that conversation would be. It could be a 5-minute, or
That's right.
with the schools and towns, it could be an hour and a half.
So the last thing that you have with regard to this is whether or not you want to vote to favorable or not favorable action on these. Tonight's the last night if you want to include it in the town meeting book that goes to the printer.
I don't
That
think,
could be
that could be another hour.
Thank you, Jack.
Right.
So what's that friendly phrase? Recommendations will be made at town meeting? I mean, the FinCom may have.
The FinCom has made all of their recommendations to date with the exception of the final decisions that the board made tonight. So by the end of the evening tomorrow, FinCom will have opined on all financial articles in the printed book, as will CPC and Planning Board for their respective articles.
Well, I'm going to ask, think about a compromise. Some of these things here, we're going to levy limit budget, free cash to balance the budget, can't we can vote on some of these tonight.
We could group them too.
Yeah, I mean, if it's controversial, we pass over it, the school debt exclusion, I mean, some of these things are easy, in my
Well, certainly
opinion.
1 and 2 are easy, right?
Yep.
So we can at least do those. I move that the Board of Selectmen recommend favorable action on.
If we're only going to do 1 and 2, I don't think we should do any
No, I'm
more.
just starting with that.
Okay.
So 1 and 2, and what else?
And we get down to, I think between now and the warrant, we're going to have to make these a town meeting, I think, that,
And maybe we do a one-sheet handout with.
Yeah,
yeah,
with
I think that's better.
with
yeah,
the
right.
recommendations.
Otherwise, it's
Put
going to
this
be
on
pretty
for the-
piecemeal.
You can put this on for the 17th, the 24th, and you can do your recommendations then,
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need some thought
Put
into
it on
some
the
of these.
website too, once you decide.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yes.
we could consider, if you are gonna manage them all on the 17th, granted, I was hoping to not, but we could also talk to the Boy Scouts, whether they could do some stuffing, into
Let's-
their deliveries. That could
Let's
be
just
enough.
go ahead and,
Yeah, well, I think we're not going to do them tonight.
right,
Is that-
we're not going to do them tonight.
Yeah.
And we
I had
may
to
not,
try and-
and we may not,
I just
half of these,
getting that
a
sense.
third of these, we may have to say, look, it's too controversial, we'll make our recommendation at town meeting, and we'll have a meeting or two before town meeting to discuss the more controversial ones.
Okay, so we'll see this on another agenda before town meeting, and we'll do what we can with that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, let's see, Let me have that
Yeah, like
damn
that.
sheet. Oh, here,
Oh,
I
here.
got it right here.
So now I have two of them.
I was wondering what happened.
Here you
Well,
go.
you know, this, okay. Board of Select-
I think we're done.
No, we're not done. There's one critical one we have to do.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I moved to close the annual town meeting warrant and adopt order, I moved that we close the annual town meeting warrant tonight.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The warrant is now
Yeah,
closed.
that's important. Good catch on that.
Good catch.
Otherwise, somebody
Yeah,
listening to
let's-
this will be running down tomorrow morning
Do
for
we-
the clerk.
Yeah, really.
Order is approved.
Yeah. Yeah, I vote to close annual town meeting warrant. Okay.
What you do with it?
So now did we,
Oh, sorry, you want this back?
That's always my important
Well,
page.
I don't have it in here.
Here.
so- yeah, no.
I have two.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, plus it has my other notes.
Okay. May I make a
What was that?
motion?
No shit.
May I make a motion
All
to
my bad
adjourn?
notes about you, Jim.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.